Welcome to this week's Closing the Distance. 3 hunts to share with you today. We're going to check in with Jim Rogers. Jim's going to take us to Kansas and Texas. We're going to check in with pro staffer Jacob Barnard. Jacob's going to take us to Virginia. I've got a couple really cool products I'm going to share with you. Brother Mark, he's back with us today. A fun episode. Let's get started.
Closing the Distance is brought to you by Matthews Solo Cam. Catch us if you can. Ozonics, scent control that works. Hunter Safety System, dedicated to saving hunters' lives. Executioner Broadheads, born to kill. And by Citadel, revolutionary shoot-down shape. Coming up, we're in Kansas and Texas with Jim Rogers. Later on, new products to share. We'll be right back. Closing the Distance is made possible by Carbon Express Arrows. Shoot better. Shoot Carbon Express. Christian Bow Hunters of America, exalting Christ as Creator, Savior, and Lord. Nikon, the trusted name in optics. Sword Sights, sharp solutions in aiming. Elusive Wildlife Technologies, taking the elusive out of wildlife. And by the amazing Luminot. Can your arrow nock do this?
We're starting out today with pro staffer Jim Rogers. Jim's been hunting some of his private ground in Kansas, but the hunting's been really slow. Jim packed up all his gear and went and checked out a public place to hunt. The first afternoon there, he kills a great deer.
I was down to my last afternoon for the season in Kansas. I decided that was it. I was not going to try again. I'm heading out in the morning. But I figured I'd have one last go at it that afternoon and try something different. I was going to head over to a public walk-in area that was only about 30 minutes away. I'm fumbling with the camera, trying to get it ready, trying to anticipate where he's going to be, at the same time getting my bow ready. And I don't know how he's not hearing me. He's only 3 or 4 steps away. And he starts angling kind of away from me, looking back every once in a while, checking out the blind, but not really thinking that much of it. And about the time he gets out to 20 yards, everything's ready. I've got the bow pulled back and I let one fly. He didn't go far. I saw him go down, and I tell you what, I was excited to pull it off there at the last minute after I'd already pretty much given up. But the key was I stuck with it just a little bit longer and gave it one last go.
That deer was right on top of me. Whew, that was fun. He fell. You could see him on camera. He didn't go far. He just ran across the fence right there and died. Whew. Man, I just got that Matthews no cam, and it didn't take long at all for me to get a buck with it. Had it about 3 days. Whew. There's my Kansas buck for the year. Look at this Kansas public land buck. It's one of these walk-in areas. I was having problems at my private land spot with railroad construction and just not seeing very many deer in general. I don't know what the deal was with that place, but last evening I said, you know what? I'm gonna go over here and go to this walk-in area and set something up real quick. And I did a couple hours ago and passed up a younger buck about the same size earlier this evening. Let him go, and when I first saw him I wasn't real impressed, but when he got closer I said, you know, he's got enough age on him. He's just a 6 point. I said, you know, if anything, he's a cull buck, so I wasn't going to shoot a young promising buck. I said, I'll go ahead and shoot this deer here. And he came right on top of me. And man, I don't know, I think it's going to be some pretty good film. He was, I thought for sure he'd pick up on that new blind that I just put up a couple hours ago, but I put a bunch of sticks around it, a bunch of dead limbs around that tent blind, kind of mixed it in at the base of a big cottonwood and an elm that was right there, and it worked out that executioner broadhead. That's my first deer with executioner broadhead, and it did very well.
When we return, Jim takes us to Texas. Big bucks are on the way. Closing the Distance will be right back. Closing the Distance is proudly supported by Whitetails Unlimited, working for an American tradition. Real World Wildlife Seed, dare to compare. And by Fish and Still Equipment, your East Texas John Deere dealer.
Welcome back to Closing the Distance. We're still hunting with pro staffer Jim Rogers. Jim's back in Texas. He's hunting on his home turf, and he's at a day lease, a place he's hunted for the last 3 or 4 years. Jim has some great luck on this place. He kills an awesome buck.
Later that season in Texas, I found myself at the BowHunting day lease that I'd hunted quite a bit in the last 2 or 3 seasons. I booked a 3-day hunt, and despite only having 20 to 25 yards of visibility looking through a small little cubby hole, I was able to see quite a few deer, including a ton of bucks, but just nothing that I really wanted. My hopes were quickly fading. I was in the last hour of my last morning hunt. I had about an hour to go before I had to pack up and leave. I was about pretty much giving up, and I was sitting back in my chair just watching the doe in front of me, and all of a sudden she feeds off to her left, and I glance off to the right, and all of a sudden I just see nothing but horns coming into the window. This buck had his head down and was feeding, and apparently had been watching her for a while until he felt like it was comfortable enough to work his way in. Finally, I felt like I could see enough vitals to go ahead and take the shot. I tell you what, I cannot believe the buck that just came out on me here on the last morning, the last hunt of my trip on a 3-day trip. That buck is big. I had a couple does around me all morning long, and I'd pretty much given up. It was the last morning. I'm getting ready to get out of the blind, regretting the buck that I let go that first hour of my first day. And this buck just totally surprised me. I knew there had to be a bigger one around, and I just stuck with it. I'm real bad about usually moving around a lot, moving locations through a 3-day hunt like this, and I decided this time just to kind of stick with it. No matter what, I was seeing a lot of deer. I was seeing deer almost every second of every hunt. And it's right here close to the rut in South Texas, and I guess my plan was just to stick it all on up till a big buck showed up, and man, he did. That was exciting. The camera battery was blinking. It was about to turn off from low battery, and man, I just squeezed that one in. Man, I am so proud of this buck. Matthew's no cam did it again. Only had it a few weeks, and it's done good for me so far. What a BowHunting day lease buck. This buck has got to be mid 160s. He only ran about 125 yards. Second buck with my executioner broadheads. I'd been hunting 3 days straight in the same spot, and there was a lot of deer coming in, but just nothing big, and I was pretty much just almost giving up on it. But the reason I picked this area is because I knew the compartment or the unit next to me had the biggest deer on the ranch as far as everybody knew, and they were saying it was 160 to 170, and
I couldn't get that section, and nobody was hunting the section next to it because it's kind of a section that not a lot of people like. It's hard to hunt. There's not a lot of good brush to hunt in. So I went ahead and took it on just because I knew this big buck was somewhere on this end of the ranch. And then with the rut, I knew he'd be moving around a little bit. And sure enough, the third day, last morning, I was getting ready to pack up and go home. I was already thinking about what time I was going to leave. And here he comes. I'd seen some video of the buck, so I recognized him when I saw him. Or at least I think it's the buck. Maybe it's a different buck, but he sure looks similar to that video I watched. And I could tell there was a big buck in that area from some tracks and stuff, and there were some scrapes, and I went ahead and took a chance. And third day, last hunt, he came out.
After the break, one more hunt.
I still got deer right here.
We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Closing the Distance. You know, skull mounts or European mounts, they've always been really popular. And over the past several years, there's been a couple different companies on the market that makes it easier for us to hang the European mounts on the wall. It makes it cheaper for us without having to go to the taxidermist because it's so easy to boil and clean your heads out. But I want to show you these two different styles that are on the market to help us hang them. I'm sure you've probably heard of the skull hooker. It's a real neat bracket that takes the skull, it takes your skull mount away from the wall. The only thing that I don't like about the skull hooker, and I'm being really picky here, is that if you've got a buck that may be like a 9-point, or if you've got a buck that may have kickers or forks on one side, even though you might have the skull hooker perfectly level on the wall, because of the different weight of the rack, it's going to swing and pivot a little bit. You've got to play with it a lot to get it level. Like this buck here, you can see the kickers off that G2, and the skull hooker is perfectly level, but you can see how just the weight of that extra points makes it swing to one side. You have to play with the skull hooker a little bit to get it exactly right. And another product on the market that basically does the same thing, it's called the head hanger. And it's a little bit sleeker bracket that you cannot see it off the wall. The bracket's kind of invisible. It makes your skull mount stick to the wall a little bit closer. And it's a real simple double prong bracket that's bendable that lets you position your skull exactly how you want it. The head hanger bracket comes in at a little bit cheaper price point, but the skull hooker and the head hanger, they're both really, really good products. You can find these products online. You can even find them at our online store at closingthedistance.com. Two really simple and cool products if you want to save some money and do your own taxidermy work.
stabilization for the elevation of my rangefinder. 30 yards. And the Matthews did the job. And the wind's been swirling all evening. I'll tell you, getting in and out of these spots, that ozonics, it works. I mean, I'll tell you what, been using that thing this season. There comes another doe into the field. That'll keep you from getting busted. That's a big part of it. So, the deer's down right there. Once these deer clear out of here, I'm gonna go get him. That's what I'm talking about. The Matthews got the job done. November 3rd. Yes.
Alright, so it's November 3rd, and this is the buck I got this evening. Not the biggest deer in the woods. Not the biggest deer, not one of my better ones even. But proud of him. It's been a tough season. I've had some misses, and this was a great hunt. He fought off a couple other bucks right before I shot him. Started coming to me. All those bucks started working their way to me, including this one. And I was just ranging him. Finally got to 30 yards, and I drew, let the Matthews have it, and made a great shot. He toppled over in the field. Wasn't any tracking job at all, and super proud of him. So it's November 3rd. I still got one more buck tag here in Virginia, going to Illinois on the 23rd. Excited for that, and hopefully get another couple more deer down on the before the end of this season. So, like I said, not the best deer ever, but I got it on film, self-filming. It's muzzleloader season, a lot of pressure on the deer, and bow hunting. So I'm proud of it. And like I said, after the misses, proud to make the shot. Gave me some confidence, and I think it's going to be a better season from here on out. So,
you know, we're blessed to live in a great time of bow hunting where we have shorter, faster, quieter bows. We have better sights. We have better shafts to shoot. I mean, all of this technology is amazing. But the truth is, in that moment of truth, when you get that opportunity at the buck of a lifetime, do you know what it really still comes down to? The fundamentals. You still have to make a clean, quiet draw. You still have to control your breathing and settle that pin. You still have to make a clean, smooth release. The fundamentals are what gets it done. And it's still true in life to this day. There's a lot of books that you can read. There's a lot of seminars that you could attend that are telling us how to get the best and the most out of life. But the fundamental message is still the best. 2,000 years ago, God sent His Son, Jesus Christ, to die for us on the cross. And He said, if you really want to live a life that is full of potential and full of the best that it can be, you still have to come to a personal relationship with God through His Son, Jesus. That is the fundamental message, and it's still the one that really does matter the most. If you'd like to know more about a personal relationship with God through His Son, Jesus Christ, just go to closingthedistance.com and click on the Moment of Truth tab.